Hello and welcome to Elliott's podcast. And we are getting down to business today. We have some stuff to go over in terms of salads and getting work done in between different maybe you'd call them commitments. And I do want to talk a little bit about this connection of what I've written down here is something to do with how goals are related to visions, and I'm talking about them because we're a few weeks away from the crossing over of the calendar into the 2022, and I think it's a good time to start talking about that. I'm also thinking about having some live sessions on this topic too. So the Patreon is up and running, yeah, and I'm actually happy with this concept. Every week is more like a renewing of my own buy-in for its purpose and why it would be valid. And I think, well, so there's the basic tier, and then I've added in some tiers involving what's called Creative Habits Club is kind of the name at the moment, and it's best described by people who are looking to instill the creative habit. And that's what a lot of what my work and research has been in and around for the past it's adding up. I was doing this kind of research for a while when I didn't even know it. I would say the best way to explain it is let's say we're on the guitar, for example. How can you pick up the guitar at any time of the day and play music? That's sort of what the gist is, because the creative habits are usually trumped by the typical habits of our life, which are totally fine, and I don't like to poop on them. But even to sit down to do this podcast, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit of that involves the idea of slipping work in between commitments. Even sitting down to do this podcast, I wrote down my notes about what to do, but I then sat on the couch. I had a lot of snacks. Like, I did the human thing, what humans do. And that's why you can never listen to anyone who thinks that it's should be totally cut out. Cut out Netflix. Don't ever watch an episode again on that goddamn network. You must sit at your piano and compose a symphony. I don't buy that at all. But I do realize that we can hone habits that contribute to our creative selves. And I think we feel better when we sit down to do these projects. And I think everyone has some kind of drive in there to do something in this way. And it's not necessarily like, oh, artsy creative. I paint. Yes, I have a painting studio, and I do a painting practice. And I also compose a bit of music. No, it's also, I lump in entrepreneurs in the creative habit as well. And people are starting things. And I'm actually reading the Dyson, I think his name is James Dyson, autobiography. And he mentions that, like, entrepreneur was a sort of a dirty word in his artist circles, but like the French roots of the word mean like architect and builder, and he really latched on to not early on. He learned to not treat the idea of being an entrepreneur as some kind of maniac, brash person that's just out to siphon money from the world. So I lump all these people in. I also would lump in, if people did things with their hands in the craft world and all that stuff. So That's why the word creative is a little broad, but I think it's the best one that I have. And so there's this Patreon tiers that I'm working on that they add on sort of like discussion threads as one of the tiers to like a weekly prompt, that sort of thing. And then another tier, and they both will have a chat community when there's enough people for that. But they also have, one of the other tiers has more. I think I've set it to about once a month. What I'm working on an idea called office hours. So I have live sessions, and I'm even going to do some free office hours, that sort of thing too, because I do believe in it. I believe in the power of live too, live stuff, being live. It's very much what all this technology is headed to. Ideally, this podcast I should be broadcasting live alongside the recording that's going on here. But so yeah, that's the Patreon. It's patreon.com/Fienberg, and there's the $3 a month tier. That's really just the basic support, and I do have I've started my weekly report, so I give some extra stuff about what's working for me in getting all this stuff done. So every tier gets access to that report, and it's now weekly. Okay, so that's great. Let's just talk about salads for a second. I didn't bring my salad props, but I got into a funk lately with salads because I was like eating the same. I was keeping them very basic. I buy the spring mix that's pre-washed, and then I would just put in oil and balsamic vinegar and sometimes some tuna. And I just got so bored of this salad combo. I was like resisting. I just kept resisting eating it. And I was just reminded, like, you got to add, to make a salad appetizing or appealing, you got to add stuff. So if you live near a place that has prepared foods like bean salads and potato salads and that sort of stuff, you should buy some of those and then add them into your salad, and then get a few different salad dressings so you can mix those up. And even if some of them are creamier and they're more fattening, I think it's okay, because a salad overall, yes, it can be, you can make a salad pretty fattening quickly, especially you're adding cheese in there and stuff like that. But you are getting a lot. Typically, I eat these kinds of salads for lunch. You do get a variety of foods, and that's what I like about the salads. So just a reminder, if you have been sort of sick of salads lately, just keep adding stuff in there. Also, sunflower seeds are good. And those, I think some people call that the crunchies. You get some crunchies in there. So yeah, if you have any salad tips to share with me, please do. I've been a big fan of lunch salads for a long time. And so that's my salad bit. Slipping work in. That's what this next chapter is about. So this is tricky because, so let's say, like, I'm recording this podcast in the afternoon, and I had stuff to do in the morning, some errands, and then I have dinner with my parents and my sister and my brother-in-law in not such a long time from now. So this podcast has been slipped in between, it's sandwiched in between those two things. And it's, on one hand, that's pretty good because it's like a built-in constraint. Like, you have to do it now. There's no other time to do it. So I know at nighttime I'll be too tired to do it. So I do it now. The key though is, how can you, let's say I had an even shorter window to do this. And then it's like, it's either getting done, you're either going to sit down and do it right away, or you're not going to do it at all. And I once read, I think I read this in a Cal Newport book about, it might have been in the book Deep Work. I don't know. It was about a writer who might have been Stephen King. might have. It was about a writer who would go on vacations home. He would go to a vacation home with his family, and he he had the ability to somehow slip in like 20 minutes of work in between certain things, or like he had these windows where he could sit down and write, and then he'd go back to the family commitments or whatever. And I think it's very interesting, because if you can master this creative habit, which is the creative habit of the slip-in, I think you're on your way to chipping away at a lot of stuff that would otherwise feel pointless or not possible. And I think I'd say the big thing, like that, for example, for this podcast today, is that like earlier in the day, I kind of knew that this was the time, and I made a sort of a mental note to myself that the ideal situation is that when I get home from the morning errands, I would do my best to sit down in the chair. The chair is another concept that I talk about once in a while, but the chair is the chair where this work needs to get done. You will sit in the chair, and then whatever practice you have for what I would call cultural reset, which is wiping away all the crap that has come in, including the news. And then you do the cultural reset, and I'll just give you one that you can do. You can take 3 deep breaths. You sit in the chair, you take 3 deep breaths, and then in this case, the way I would get the podcast done is I write down the segments on this sheet of paper, and then I take them over here. Then I have to set up the equipment, and then pretty much just start. Like I can't do this whole thing in a perfectionist way, or else I'll never get it done. And the real work is doing this podcast every week. That's the work here. The work is not hitting home run episodes. They're not happening. Okay, I'm a one person operation. I should not ever think that I'm some kind of. I think a lot of people listen to the big podcasts on their networks, and they think that one person who's the host has made that show. It's not that case at all. They probably have, I don't know how many people work for them to do it, but or they just, if it's an interview, then someone's helped create, schedule the interview and get things going and that sort of stuff, and then the interview kind of takes it is its own thing, and then there's the editing afterwards. But the real action for me is just writing down what I need to talk about, setting up the equipment, and then from there is the post-production. So all this to say is, if I can write down what's on this sheet, that's probably the most key action that needs to happen. So earlier in the day, I might envision myself sitting in the chair and writing down on this piece of paper, and then I can go over and record. Now, today I would say that broke down a little bit, because once I wrote down the things on the paper, I gave myself permission to waste a bit of time. And that's fine. I knew I was wasting time, and I got back to it, and I set up the gear, and I'm recording. So yeah, I think I think if you can slip work in, if you can doodle, you can write a chapter of your story in these little pockets, you will have been able to seize a lot of time if you add them up. And I think it's a key habit for people to work on. So I just wanted to quickly talk about that. All right. Now here's this other thing. Okay, so New Year's is coming up, so we're going to talk a little bit about goals. I suck at goals and understanding goals and how they work and that sort of thing. I don't know what makes a good goal, and nor do I care. But at the end of the day, I I see the importance of them, and I never want to give up on goal setting. I think a lot of people have been jaded by goal setting because they might have set a goal and then got nowhere near it and then just gave up. So I probably fall somewhere in that category. But here's where I'm kind of turning a new leaf on goal setting, is that I think we give up on goals because we come up with great little nifty ways of sabotaging them. That usually comes from certain parts of the mind. The mind is apparently located in the brain, but I don't want to get into that. But certain parts of the mind and the brain have a way of negotiating things with you, your soul or your body, and there becomes this disconnect that happens where the goal is sort of set, and then it's like, I got new information and my sources report that I'm not going to make this goal, so I'm going to now pig out every night until I'm not able to complete any work because I have made myself sick from overeating, and I'm going to sleep in, and I'll find something else to do, and that sort of thing happens. That sabotage takes hold. And this is the big stuff I wanted to talk about, is the word values. I used to think was very corny. I always thought that values was something that was discussed at a corporate retreat by a consultant that comes in, and everyone wants to punch his nose out because he's making them do things that are just stupid with Sharpie markers and big pieces of paper. And so the word values always had, and mission statements are thrown in there, and that's always had a bad reputation in my mind as being stupid. And it's not that way at all, because I think values are basically what you hold important. If I need to record a podcast and I need a decent microphone that does that, I will value what Sennheiser, which is what this microphone is, I will value what they're offering and what their brand stands for, and I will go out and pay money for a Sennheiser microphone. And the way it will, if I'm recording an instrument into it and that sort of thing, and then I believe in just whatever the intelligence that they've acquired over their time in their factory and their engineers, I value it, and I will trade. I will give something up from my bank account, and I will make that trade happen. And so when you value, let's say creative, some kind of creative project, you will give up time and energy from you, or something even more, and you will apply yourself to do it and to get it done. But when you're not clear about that, if that's worth anything, if it means anything, then you will start to enter into the sabotage. So the goal will be set, and then as you move along, as the other side of the left side of the brain that's trying to be rational will start to gather evidence that this is a bad idea. You better do something more reliable here. I need you to do things that are proven, please. Don't go out on a limb. And your right brain was probably the one that had the crazy idea to begin with. And as you go along, the value starts to get buried away. And this is, I would say, oh, my foot is asleep. I would say this is a big problem with older people more than younger people. Because I know that when I was younger, I could finish music and do things and well, I could release stuff with I would say, I mean, yeah, fairly minimal. Younger people just tend to be able to move into through creative projects with a bit more fire, because that's all they have going for them is fire. They have no sense of savviness in business in the marketplace, which is totally fair. And some of them, obviously, many of them probably do. I just know from my experience as a young person, and I know that when I sometimes speak to like younger students at like networking events or whatever, alumni things, like some of them are just completely in left field in terms of like knowing how to communicate and ask other people what they do. Like, so I just kind of have these theories in my mind. But the younger person doesn't really probably stray. I don't know. Maybe I could be completely wrong about that, but I just feel like older adults are more susceptible to the sabotage, because there's a lot more competing for their time and energy and money and that sort of thing. Younger people are susceptible in other ways. They can easily get distracted, or there's other issues with social commitments and that sort of thing. And so everyone, no matter who you are and where you are on this totem pole pecking order, you're definitely going to have issues. But with finishing work and with staying on track. But so let me kind of reiterate, and then we'll wrap it up here. But so you can go at this in any form, in any direction. You can start with understanding what you value and what you're looking to achieve, which becomes a bit of a vision. Or you can just say, I have a goal. I want to record an album by March. And then here's the two other items I haven't discussed yet, which one is the intention. So there's an intention related to creating this album, and then there are actions that are needed to create the album. And so the actions would be things like finishing music and a little bit of research. What kind of music you could be just researching your own catalog of music, and you're sort of putting this project together. And then the action is to is it to finish a song every week that so that you have enough songs to pick from, and so that you're working towards the date that you've set. And then what happens is, if you stopped doing the actions, we would have to look at, are you aligned with the intention of finishing the album? And so the word intention is tied back to the vision and values. So I value recording music. I value the effect that music has on people. I value how I feel when the music is made, when I finish the music. And so I think you get the gist of what I'm saying, and I don't want to beat this over the head, because then I'm just going to keep talking about what we typically call buzzwords involving value, vision, intention, goals, and actions. But I do want to call to attention this connection that what happens when people are fallen off of doing the actions. And it can go the other way too. If someone's trying to quit a bad habit, they would have to, if you said you were wanting to cut out sugar, the highest level of this project would be understanding that you believe sugar to be bad for you and that it doesn't have a place in your system. And I might be just talking about candy and refined sugar. And so the actions would be involving not buying candy and not putting it in your mouth if you did buy it. And if you did break that, if you did start doing the opposite action, which would be eating the candy and that sort of thing, go back and it's like, well, do you really? You're now eating the candy again. Your value apparently said that you thought the candy was bad for you. So now, is it really bad for you? And that is where I would pinpoint why things can be very that's why this is not a simple process, and that's why this can be complicated, because the brain gets into this negotiation on what it values, and it usually comes in from, as I said before, information coming in, discouragements and that sort of thing, expecting immediate results. There could be anything that happens that sabotages it, and it's not a simple process. But this is what they call the hero's journey, because you would say that I want to get this done, and I'm going to do this against the wishes of my society, which typically wishes that we would sit around and consume popcorn and watch movies all night. I think. I could be wrong. This is how I sort of have come to understand the world. It's there's a lot of emphasis I've noticed on passive consumption and to do things and to say things that don't line up with this passive consumption tends to turn heads, either from your inner circles, or I don't want to suggest it, that the government doesn't want you to make art. That would just be unfair to say that. But just notice how the structures of things work, and I've said it in many things in the past as well. Like, do you feel like when you wake up that your phones and everything around you is telling you to go sit down and play guitar and to go painting? And I would probably debate you. I don't think that's what the energy is of things that you read online and all this stuff. It's a very, if you go out and seek it, you will find there have been many people in throughout history. In my lifetime, I've read different authors who have been very good at helping people like understand the importance of sitting in the chair and getting this stuff done. One of them is definitely Seth Godin. I would say has always been a big influence on just like rattling people and saying, can you just stop being so pedestrian and actually have something to say and that sort of thing. And then there's also Stephen Pressfield, who one of the names of his book is The War of Art. Do the Work is another one. He has a few books, like very inspirational people about like different strategies for just sitting down, and when you sit down, it'll come to you. Sometimes when I sit down to practice guitar and I set the timer for 20 minutes, I'm like, oh, this is going to be so bad. This is going to be a brutal session. And, you do some of the warm-ups, and then you play some of the songs you're working on, and then you jam a bit. And before you know it, the 20 minutes has gone by. And same thing for me sitting down to do this podcast. My butt is not in a chair. It's on a block. And it's we're just about done here, and I think I've been able to say what I needed to say, and I've made peace with that. And yeah, I think it's just some stuff to chew on for the holidays, because it's the time of year when I think everyone reassesses, am I making progress in this thing that I know is the most important thing in my life, which I call the most creative work. Am I making progress on this pet project that has been kicking around in my brain? And all it takes is 10 minutes for me, 2 minutes I could set a timer for 2 minutes, and I can at least just start writing about it and picturing exactly what has to happen and coming up with some of those actions. So that's good. I'm going to play a song. This one, I don't think I've played it on the podcast before. If I did, I don't know. I don't know why it came up to my mind, but it's melancholy. Someone told me recently they really enjoy it as one of their favorites from my catalog. It's not from 2021, it's from 2020, and I thought it was the best song of 2020. So it's kind of weird. You'd think I'd play the best song of 2021. Maybe I'll do a wrap-up playlist next week or something. But this one's called Hell or High Water. And so I'll leave you with that. And all right, stay cozy, stay cool, and stay safe, as everyone says. And I really believe that one of the best things we can do for ourselves during difficult times is to give ourselves the attention in terms of connecting with ourselves and doing something creative and something that adds meaning and purpose to our lives. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Take care.